Hello and welcome to Qtr Time Podcast in partnership with Lovell Netball. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
At Qtr Time Pod, we are big advocates of being open when talking about periods. And so we're really pleased to say that our friends at Madi have collaborated with Puma to launch a new range of active period underwear to keep you free from leaks, sweat and discharge when you work out, no matter the time of the month.
This active period underwear collection comes in 3 styles and a range of sizes, absorbencies and 2 colourways. If you're passionate about the planet, then you'll be pleased to know they are made from 82% recycled material.
As sponsors of the podcast, Madi are delighted to offer our listeners an exclusive 15% discount on the collection at modibody.com if you use the code Qtr Modibody. You can find all the T's and C's and the code in the podcast notes.
Go check it out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Qtr Time. We are all systems go now with all 3 major leagues up and running following the season opener of Suncorp Super Netball. And what an opener it was, Luce. Like some of those games were incredible. We have so much to unpack this week. So, Luce, why don't you give us the lowdown for this week's episode?
So first we'll be whipping through our 3-word summaries of the Netball Super League round 7, including our game of the round and our player of the round. Then we'll be taking a look at the Suncorp Super Netball season opener with, I love our guest for this one, Luce. It is Madi Browne, and we're going to be running through all the games, highlighting the key talking points, bringing you our Qtr Time Trio. We've got it all. If you missed any of the games as well, do catch up. You can buy your pass on Netball Australia TV. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's like, what, £27 or £29 if you do it on PayPal. So really, to get the whole season for that, it is such good value for money. And the production value is incredible, which is something that we'll come to talk about a little bit later. But let's get stuck into Netball Super League round 7. First up on Friday was Thunder versus Bath, with another convincing win for Thunder, 76-57. And I've gone for last quarter fade. Although Thunder never really seemed to be in any true danger in this game, winning every single quarter, Bath were only down by 8 at half-time and yet lost by a whopping 19 goals. They just seem to have this tendency, and it's understandable given, you know, the whole circumstances and new team and blah, blah, blah. But they do have this tendency in the last few games to really lose their heads in the last half or the last quarter, and did so in this game, 21-14 in the last quarter. But some of the stats in this game are freaking wild. Get this, right? 119 feeds for Thunder, 50 of which were for Metcalf and 40 of which were for Iona Christian. What? 19 feeds. It's crazy. There was 15 turnovers for Thunder compared to Bath 6, 7 intercepts to 1, and a whopping 53 goals for Lenise Potgieter. So crazy stats.
Stats across the board, I think. Next up, we had Sirens versus Mavs, and it was a 71-47 win to Sirens. Ooh. Yeah. And then for my 3-word summary, I just said, check that scoreline. I fully anticipated this to be a really fierce battle, but I have to say I was not expecting this scoreline. I think even in the commentary, they predicted Mavs by 5 as the kind of prediction before the game, which is just redonkulous. It was a monstrous effort for the Scottish side. So many standout performances. Good win. I mean, she is in absolutely career best form at the moment, 50 goals. Beth Dix, 45 feeds. Claire Maxwell dominating in the first half. Vincumbo with an amazing 6 intercepts, 6 deflections and 11 turnovers. I mean, it was just incredible from Sirens. My heart does really break, though, for Mavs. They just did not show up after the first quarter. Camilla said at the end she was speechless, and I can really see why, to be honest. She just seemed at a total loss. I mean, I don't even know what the solution is for Mavs. Where do they go from here?
I really don't know, because although they have had like a fair number of players, they did keep like a pretty core spine, your Gibsons, your Corbyn, and I just don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't.
No, I think as well, you have to say that Sirens played an absolute blinder.
Oh, for sure.
Home, they had the crowd and everything, and it was just not Mavs Day really on this game.
Yeah. So first up on Saturday then was Stars versus Thunder, with Thunder getting their second win of the weekend, 63-56. And I've said snatched a win. Now, by the sound of it, this game was everything. I was so gutted this wasn't streamed. It was neck and neck at half time. Then Stars were up by 5 at 3/4 time. And then Thunder had a really dominant 22-10 final quarter to take the win. This this 1 quarter brain fade from teams just seems to be a recurring feature now. Like in every single round, at least one team is doing it. And I just think so many teams are struggling for that consistency this year. But defensively for me, Stars shone, pun intended. They really did shine in this game. They had 7 intercepts to Thunder's 3, 9 turnovers to Thunder's 4. But it was the unforced errors that were a killer for them. They clocked up 16 to Thunder's 7. In terms of shooting, though, both teams' shooting ends were on fire. Berger and Potgieter had 47 and 42 shots respectively. In fact, there were only 7 missed shots throughout the entire game. So they all really did have the hot hand on Saturday.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that game as well. Never mind. On Sunday, though, it was, of course, Mother's Day, and we had Lightning versus Rhinos. Lightning taking the win at 63-49. And for this one, I actually said a flattering scoreline. This was another absolutely cracking game. I think that probably Lightning were caught napping a bit in the first half, and then things were just really clicking into place for Rhinos. It was really just the 18-8 final quarter. This final quarter in favour of Lightning that really made the difference. Rhinos just brought so much energy, and I think it's important not to forget that they were playing with a completely different style of goal shooter than they're used to. A Paige Reed plays a very different style to an Ellie Bird, and they were really adapting to that kind of on the fly. In terms of Lightning, though, it was really good for them to get a win in the 150th Super League appearance for captain Nat Panagari, and they will be pleased that they managed to grind it out. However, they won't be happy with a little bit of ill discipline and 14 missed shots and 12 unforced errors in this game.
Yeah, that's very uncharacteristic for them, for sure. And shout out to Alice Harvey as well, who also got her 50th cap in this game. So lots of landmarks for them. And a final game of the round on Monday was Storm versus Dragons, with Storm taking another confident win, 68-40. And I've gone for, drumroll please, done and dusted. Did you get it?
Yep. See what you did there, Luce?
Yeah, so clever.
Great one.
It's been a long day. So the big news ahead of this game, obviously, was the fact that Rachel Dunn has been signed as a replacement player for Celtic Dragons due to Chelsea Beard being ruled out with an injury, which is really, really sad for her because she started the season so well. But how great was it to see Dunn back out on court? Natural order has been restored in the world, and it was just Rachel Dunn doing Rachel Dunn things, really. I think this game was a little bit of one-way traffic, if I'm honest. There was 5 intercepts in the first quarter alone for Surrey Storm, and they obtained the highest first quarter score of the season in this game. Dragons, on the flip side, they were having massive difficulty on that first phase, and their attack was understandably pretty sticky given the changes. And I think they desperately missed Ella Powell-Davies as well, which didn't really help matters.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think lots more work needed for Dragons to get that attack really gelling. They were just hugging the sidelines the entire time. And I mean, obviously credit to Storm for the work they were doing, but you were just like, where is the person driving through the middle? Who is it? Where are they? But it's very
just
difficult.
Running away from the ball.
Yeah, for sure. But obviously Gabby Sinclair's out as well. You know, there's something like 5 different attacking combinations in the last 5 games. It's impossible for them really at the moment. And they just want to get that consistency back.
Yeah.
Moving on to our game of the round, it was Lightning versus Rhinos. I just thought this was an extremely interesting game. For the first 45 minutes, you wouldn't have really thought that this was the 10th team in the table playing away to the team in third position on the table. And the gap was only 5 at the 3-quarter time break. So it really could have gone either way just until that last quarter. What I did think was impressive about Rhinos is how they just managed to slow the game down, apply the physical defensive pressure really early to stop Lightning getting that flow and rhythm in attack, because we know that's where they get away from teams because they can score so quickly. This season so far, apart from Lightning's loss to Thunder, they've consistently scored at least 34 goals by halftime. But in this game, it was just 29 goals to Lightning and 30 to Rhinos. So that all that pressure in the first half really paid off. I did think that neither Alice Harvey or Zanelle Vimbella could do anything to stop Paige Reed. She was so elusive, so crafty. 37 from 44 at 90%. And actually, she scored the same number of goals as Mary Chollock. And she got player of the match, despite the fact that she was on the losing team.
I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know about her performance, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think what was missing for her was actually a strong GA option who's consistently going to post. And that was where Rhinos got caught out a bit in the second half. Grierson, for me, is definitely a wing attack option and not so much a goal attack. She also had 5 unforced errors, which was the joint highest on court.
Yeah, I completely agree. And she actually went into goal shooter at one point, Grierson, which I thought was unusual, so we say, a bit rogue. But I think in that last quarter, when Lightning did start to put their foot down, I would have liked to have seen Ellie Bird come on and then Reed go back out to goal attack. And I think if they'd done that, potentially, I mean, it's easy to say they could have won the game. Like, who knows what would have happened? But I think they should have mixed it up then.
Yeah, because I think they would have been able to keep Fran Williams a bit busier then. And I mean, Ellie Bird was on the bench in this game, but she's coming back from injury. So perhaps that's why we didn't see her. But I guess from a Lightning perspective, it felt like everyone came out and did a job well, but no one really owned their position from the first whistle. And they sort of allowed Rhinos to get a bit of a sniff and get their tails up. And actually, Rhinos are a bit of a team where they're like little scrappers, you know, they'll just come in and they keep going and they're niggly and they'll keep grinding away at you. And actually, you don't really want to let them get their tails up early on in the game. But yeah, Lightning play Storm on Saturday and then Pulse on Monday. Oof. So, yeah. But I mean, if I'm honest, Mickey Austin and Sam Bird will probably be looking very closely at this game and thinking, okay, we've seen, here are the chinks in the armor. This is where we can expose them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are going to be some absolutely cracking matches. I cannot wait for them.
Yeah.
Moving on to our player of the round then. This week, we are going up north and we are picking Claire Maxwell from Strathclyde Sirens. But honourable mention to Bethan Goodwin and also Amy Flanagan, who I think played a blind. I mean, Amy Flanagan hasn't had a week where she hasn't played a blinder, if I'm being perfectly honest.
It's true.
But yeah, Claire Maxwell takes it for this week. Stats-wise, she had 3 intercepts, 4 deflections, 5 turnovers. But the most impressive thing for me was that Sasha Corbin, who we know is an absolute rocket, she was that real engine in attack for Mavericks. She only had 12 feeds in this game and she was sent to the bench. So Maxwell did an absolute number on her. I think she did a fantastic shutdown game, which really allowed Vincumbo to come out on the fly and be able to pick up so much ball because she had great stats to her name as well. But I think a lot of that can be contributed to the work that Maxwell was doing outside the circle. And I just think she's a really, I don't know, like an underrated player, I guess, kind of just goes under the radar a little bit. She obviously has really great leadership within that Siren side and she is instrumental to that team. And I just think it was a really solid week from her. Particularly the first half.
I completely agree, I think, about the first half. And I actually think Emily Nicol was quite quiet in this game. And Maxwell almost took it upon herself to really stand up, sort of in the absence of Nicol's usual form, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's a great week from her, for sure.
And so moving on to one of our talking points for this week, we kind of alluded to it at the start of the show, but it does feel a little bit like, I mean, I love the Friday night games. I love sitting with my glass of gin and tonic, you know, on a Friday, like work's all finished for the week and you're like, oh, we've got a bit of netball. I love that. However, I do feel that because the Friday night games aren't filmed in the studio, we do miss quite a lot of that analysis, like Tamsin with the touchpad. And that was really one of the best parts of the Monday night games, if I'm honest.
Yeah, 100%. Like all the pre-match stuff, all the stuff at halftime. It just gave viewers who had like a decent understanding of the game that deeper level, and it really helped in being able to pick out different structures and, you know, something for the neutrals to really get their teeth stuck into as well. So it was beneficial on so many levels. And I understand this year they've obviously gone for a very different tact. They've gone for the Corbyn hype show, which really does have its benefits. And, you know, seeing all the videos and social media of people doing the dances and stuff like that, it's mega cute. Love to see it. But for me personally, I think for us to be taken seriously as a grown-up sport, I think we need something that's more informative, that's more akin to like Centre Circle or Pivot that they have in SSN. And, you know, what they do in the post-match interviews with almost like a panel discussion with the commentators and the coaches, like that kind of stuff, I think really elevates the sport and shows that we're, you know, we should be taken seriously. As much as I love the hype stuff, I kind of feel that should maybe be kept to being in the venue itself and part of like the sports presentation stuff, and then keep the informative Pivot off the court. Where's off the court this year?
Yeah, off the court. Yeah, that was so good. I think it's just about that analysis, isn't it? Like the games and the entertainment stuff, great. And, you know, it just feels slightly like we're missing out on a bit of the top level analysis from our experts, of which we are so lucky to have so many of them who do work for Sky. And, you know, I'd love to hear, you know, more from Ebony about the games and the previews and things like that, and that really good analysis. But it seems like it's very bare bones. The production values in general seem a little bit lower than what we're used to in terms of the camera quality and the commentators having to run down at the end to do the interviews. It does feel a little bit of a shame, I think, really, that we don't have all the value. Like, I think it's been with watching SSN this weekend and just seeing how much better it is over there. I think it's just kind of brought into reality sort of where we're at the moment and where we still need to go.
Yeah, we are very much worlds apart, aren't we? And we always knew that they were a step ahead, but actually seeing the comparison this weekend and reminding ourselves just how good SSN is.
However, though, they have a significantly more budget to work with. They've got, you know, significantly better ticket revenues for clubs, means they can do more in the arena, all of that stuff. So we're still very much in the growth phase, but I think we just need to make sure that we're improving each year and it not going backwards at all.
And speaking of improving, one thing I have noticed, maybe I'm just picking it up more, but I do think there is a trend that venues are selling out more this year, which is fantastic. Like, people are actually showing up. So we need more of that. Keep it coming, keep it happening. The more money we can put into the sport, the more we'll get out of it.
Yeah, totally agree.
So coming up after the break, we chat to the legendary Madi Browne all about round 1 of Suncorp Super Netball.
I don't know about you, Luce, but it gets to this point in the season and all I'm thinking about is getting new trainers. You know, when you're just eyeing them up all the way through, I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I love a bit of new stash, but I'm the type of person, I'll put all of these things into my basket, spend hours and hours looking around, but then I'll never actually go through with it. It just sits in my basket forevermore.
It's so true. I know, honestly, can relate. But luckily, Lovell Netball are offering a 15% discount on all first-time orders with code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk. So you're sorted.
Yeah, and honestly, Lovell Netball is the place to go. Whatever you want, they've got absolutely everything.
Everything. Such a good range. Yeah.
So whether you're looking for trainers, you're looking for bibs, you're looking for supports, whatever you need.
Sports bras, all of that stuff.
Sports bras, exactly. They have got you covered. So don't forget, that's a 15% discount off all first-time orders with the code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk.
Love a bit of Lovell. Oh my God.
Love a bit of Lovell.
Love a bit of Lovell. Happy shopping, guys. It is such a pleasure to welcome the incredible Madi Browne onto the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to be on.
It is our pleasure, honestly. We're really, really excited to chat all things SSN with you. And before we take a look at each game in detail, what were your overall impressions of the opening round this year?
To be honest, I was actually really impressed with the quality of netball straight out of the bat. I mean, usually you see the first 5 minutes of games quite riddled with mistakes and teams going back and forth with momentum. So, yeah, I was really impressed that some of the quality and standard that the teams put out in round one, I can't imagine what we're going to be seeing towards the end of the season. So I think that was a great indication of what's ahead.
What do you put that down to? Do you think it's just a really thorough preseason or the expectation of a World Cup year? Everyone's kind of upping their game?
Oh, I think it's probably a bit of everything, really. We had obviously our Team Girls Cup a couple of weekends ago on the Gold Coast, and I think every team, you put out a little bit of strategy, you obviously bring your training partners in, you're not really showing all your cards at once, but you're having to try a little bit of things out against each other because at the end of the day, you want to be able to see whether it does or doesn't work. And I think a few teams got a bit of a reality shock and go, okay, well, where are we sitting here? Some had injuries, so a lot have had to put in a fair bit of work in the last 3 weeks until round one. So I think, yes, World Cup selections on the line. Although the Diamonds had an incredible quad series, I'm not sure there'll be many changes, but, you never know what happens in a season. Injuries, things like that can happen. Pregnancies are happening all over in Australia at the moment. So, you always want to just be in your best form. But it was a great start to round one, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing that really stuck out for us is just in general how even it is across the board and how really any team on their day can really take it to any other team. And now, I mean, the Super Shot obviously is a point of contention amongst commentators and fans alike, but I think we're kind of getting used to it now. Teams know how to play with it. They know how to use it tactically, and we're starting to see it used a little bit better. But taking a look at the first game, which was obviously the Magpies versus the Swifts, and it was a 71-63 win to the Magpies. And for this game, I think it's impossible not to mention Jodie Ann Ward, who was absolutely phenomenal. And we've done a Qtr Time Trio for this episode, which is a attacker, middie, and a defender who we thought really stood out. And she was our defender, despite some very strong competition, I have to say, across the weekend. But some of her stats, at halftime, she had 7 gains on her own, which is almost twice what the whole of the Swifts team had. She finished the game on 4 intercepts, 3 rebounds, 7 deflections, 9 gains, and only 7 penalties. And the fact that she did so well, it was just amazing. She was crowned player of the match over Nelson, who shot 53 out of 53 at 100%. I mean, how crucial was she to the Pies win in this opening round?
Well, if you look back on and just to say, incredible. She was phenomenal to watch, to the point that you're just whenever the ball went into her area, I mean, Swift should have just completely isolated her and whatever side she was on, gone down the other, because she just was everywhere. She was elusive. She was quick on her feet. She was moving around the attackers. She was making them second guess where the space was. But I think what we need to look at is in 2022, Magpies were the worst defensive team in the league. So struggled to get game balls, struggled then. They'd get it down, they'd convert, but they just weren't getting enough. So the fact that, as you said, she had more than their opposition is a great indication that they've looked at those stats, they've looked at that and gone, all right, well, we need to give our attackers more opportunity to score. And they scored the most out of anyone in the league. 71 goals is high. We usually see a Fever score that. So Shimona Nelson, as you said, was incredible. 53 out of 50, 100%. I mean, it's hard to shoot at 100% and over 50 goals and not get player of the match. But when there's Jodie Ann Ward down the other end, I mean, the Jamaicans must be rubbing their hands together going, look, we took it to the Aussies last year at Com Games, but look at the confidence that some of these players have. And I've always said they're a threat to be reckoned with when it comes to World Netball. So, yeah, they're in really good form. But Magpies across the board, I thought all of their players just played their role. There was standouts, but Sophie Garvin played her goal attack role brilliantly. We've talked about, can she play 4 quarters? Is she a goal attack option? Kelsey Brown was really good in the mid-court. Same with Jovic. They had 5 of their starting 7 out of the Team Girls Cup and really struggled. They didn't get any wins. So it just shows the impact of those big game players. I think they were missing 8 premierships within that lineup at Team Girls Cup. So it just shows that experience when it comes into the fold, how dominant and how I think impressive they can be. And I think every team's on notice about the Magpies this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think as a collective, they just played with so much confidence. And it's probably a confidence that we haven't really seen from them in recent years. Do you think this is finally the year that they pull it all together and make it to the grand final?
I kind of think it's like their last dip in a way, because I think a few older players have maybe mentioned that they might retire at the end of the year. So, you're in that, like, this is it. Like, you've got to make the most of having some of those older heads around, because then a change or two happens, and then you kind of building and rebuilding again. But that main core group have been together for maybe 3 or 4 years now. So there's been, 1 or 2 little changes here and there, but Mentor, Ward, Brazel, Brown, Jovic, and even Nelson, they've been together. It's just the inclusion of Garvin. So I think now is their time. Obviously, another year under Nicole Richardson, it is their year to take it out. And if they can't take it out, then it's worrying to see, well, what else can they actually bring into the mix? Because if you kind of can't do it with this group, what else are you missing? Because I feel you've got all the pieces. You've just got to put it all together. And it's consistency for them. They usually don't start the season off really well. So, yeah, consistency and a great win in round 1, I think, sets them up, because usually they finish strong, but start strong, finish strong, then they're well and truly in the mix and looking good.
Yeah, it's really interesting that when you say they normally finish a lot stronger than they start. And I think for some players like Jiva Mentor in particular, she definitely gets stronger as the season goes on as well as an individual. So it's quite a frightening prospect, actually, if they're this good now and that's the trend. Like, what on earth are they going to be like by the end of it? But on the flip side, the Swifts uncharacteristically, for me, they just looked a bit lost. They just had no answers to the Magpies whatsoever. Why do you think the Swifts struggled so much in this game when they've got almost an identical team to last year?
Yeah, you're so right. And at halftime, I even spoke to Madi Browne and I just said, where is this disconnection coming from? Because it's so unlike the Swifts that we know. And she was just like, I actually don't even know. Like, she couldn't even put her finger on it. She was like, I think we're still sitting in pre-season. We haven't actually rocked up to round 1. They just looked like everything was working in a bit of isolation rather than in unit works, where you looked at the opposition of the Magpies and you're like, oh, they are so strong all together. For me, it was even their timing. I mean, Romelda Aiken, she is a very good shooter, but they really struggled to kind of find how she's going to work in. And I think even Housby, how she injects. To be honest, I probably would have started with Housby at goal shooter and Fawns in goal attack if I was Bryony Akel. I just think those moving defenders would have kept Jiva on her toes earlier, but she knew where Romelda was going to be because she's that focal point under the post and could start to fly. And that's where that momentum started to come. And all of a sudden, the turnover ball just kept going. And for me, the Swifts just looked like they were in quicksand. It's like one of those things where you're like, the harder you try to fix it, the worse it gets. So the quicker you sink down. So it's just about sometimes just going, okay, I think they were looking too far ahead, going, all right, the game's starting to slip away. And I was like, well, really, you need to knuckle down in the power 5. And they just didn't exploit it enough because they've got the manpower to shoot those 2-pointers. They just didn't utilize their time enough, I think, in those slots.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think we know Housby can sink those. And it was almost, there was a little bit of a sense of them being a bit tentative to do that and not really showing that confidence that we usually see from the Swift and playing that possession game. I mean, they let Jodie Ann Ward, I mean, obviously she had an amazing game, but they let her have each one of those gains by not playing the possession game that we really know and love from them. And one thing that we couldn't help notice about this game in particular was there was a bit of a lackluster crowd in the arena. That there wasn't that many people in the venue. And one of the things that SSN is typically known for is the ability to pack out arenas consistently every week. But obviously this sadly wasn't the case for this game. And it is a recurring issue for the Magpies as we understand it. What do you think they could do to rectify this? Because obviously it's difficult. That can't continue indefinitely because it may put the club at risk and they need to be putting those bums on seats. So what's your take on that issue?
Well, I mean, I think with success, that breeds more bums on seats. Like when you're winning, people want to be a part of it, where I think they've struggled to, obviously, they've had the teams and they've struggled to actually gain that trust of the fans that we've got a team and we're gonna deliver when you ask us to deliver with who we've got. So I think that's a real struggle. I mean, you do look at the Lightning and they are in a smaller stadium. It always looks packed. So maybe the Magpies do need to look at an alternative, smaller, compact venue that they can really pack out, make it a cauldron, make those fans really kind of add that impact to the game. Obviously, John Cain, it is a big arena. It can hold about 10,000. So when it's not full, yeah, it is going to look empty, and that, as you said, that atmosphere is not going to be there. So I think it might be best for the Magpies to maybe look at some alternative venues, especially for those away teams. I mean, this week they're coming up against the Vixens, so no better place to be than John Cain Arena to pack it out for the local derby. But yeah, for smaller away teams, maybe a smaller, more localised, to really build that fan base. And then as you start to grow out of it, then you can obviously maybe move back to John Cain. I mean, it's kind of sad because as you in Victoria, obviously where it is, Collingwood, literally his home ground is across the road from John Cain. So you look at that synergy and you're like, oh, literally within the complex and within that kind of fortress, you've got the MCG where the football play, you've got John Cain where the netball play, and then you've got the actual local clubs all in this one precinct. So yeah, it's something that they need to build. And I think winning games is exactly the way to go about it.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting point, actually, because I think in fairness, how can we expect the fans to show up when the Magpies haven't consistently shown up week after week in seasons gone by? So I think that's an absolute fair one. But they definitely did show up in this game, and it was a cracking way to open round one. And speaking of cracking games, the next one for me was the game of the round, Fever versus Vixens. It was a 1-goal win to the Fever. Now, this proper lived up to grand final rematch hype for sure. Fever might have taken the win, but it definitely wasn't plain sailing for them. And I think there were some real standout performances from the Vixens, particularly Qtr Austin, Liv Lewis, and of course they were missing the powerhouse of Joe Weston as well. In fact, Fever only won the first quarter. It's the only quarter that they won. Wow. And I think at times they were a little bit lucky in their attack, as I think there's a few occasions, or numerous occasions actually, where the touch on the feed to Fowler was just really missing, and she had to work some magic to kind of pull something out of nothing at times. Do you think that this was just a bit of nerves from them early on, this kind of poor feed in?
Yeah, I also think it is very different when you're the hunted to being the hunting. When you're hunting for that premiership and then you win it, then you're being hunted. And that can just change your mindset, change your perspective, change the way that you, as I said, like even with the Swifts, they've been up the top for so long. So they were playing uncharacteristically. So with the Fever. So then you start to get into your head a little bit and go, what is happening? Or maybe I won't throw that because if I turn it over, then that's a 2 goals and we're struggling to get. So you do play this kind of like mindset back and forth, like the devil and the angel on your shoulder. Should I let it go? Should I not? And you just get into your head a little bit. So I don't think it's obviously worrying signs for the Fever. They're going to be hard to beat this year. They're probably sitting in that hot seat of back-to-back. But we have heard a few times Dan Ryan talk about, that elephant in the room and just say like, yes, we do want to go back to back. Like we're not shying away from exactly what we're here to do. And I think the fact that he addresses that with his team and he's very much about the mental side of the game, not just the physical side. They've definitely got the right person in charge to help them obviously work through those things. But you're right. I think they played a little bit hesitantly. As you said, the balls were falling short, confidence. I mean, Verity Simmons as well. She was obviously concussed at Team Girls Club. So she would have had to have 12 days out of training. So whether she's had a bit of a, mixed up lead up to the game, hasn't been in it training as much. Sometimes you just haven't had that time. But you talk about Fowler. I mean, she makes every ball look good. I mean, she's a feeder's dream. You can put it anywhere and she takes it in. So, you've still got her down the end and Courtney Bruce obviously hustling and hassling the goalers at the other end. But you're right, Vixens, I think this team, after Team Girls Cup as commentators, we had a few questions about it going, are they going to be a top 4 side? Like they've been together for a long time. They've been under Simone for a really long time. Sometimes you are continually hearing the same things, and it's just not having that impact like it did 2 or 3 years ago. So I was actually really quite shocked with the way that they came out and they had that intent. And even her starting 7, I thought was really interesting, having Liz Watson in the centre. It's so unusual for us to see. But I love Hannah Mundy as a player. I think she's really dynamic. She's speedy. She's creative. And I think for them to actually go long into the season, they need her on court. So I loved the fact that they started with her and gave her that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really fascinating game. And you mentioned Fowler there. She's actually taken out the attacking part of our Qtr Time Trio. She shot outrageously 55 from 55, another 100%. It honestly just blows your mind. She made the poor feeds look good. She combined well with Glasgow. She also picked up 2 gains, a deflection and an intercept. And we know that this year is the first year that she has her partner and her daughter by her side as well, which is absolutely amazing. And I think for me, it just speaks to the mental fortitude that she has been able to perform as well as she has done over the years whilst being separated from her family. Do you think we'll see an even more elevated version of Fowler this year? Like, how much better could she possibly get? Let's be real.
Well, I mean, I think the whole competition's like, absolutely not. Let's not. She's like 5 or 6-time MVP, league MVP. So no, we don't want her to get better. It's interesting you say that, because I think, just to put 2 perspectives, you can feel more at home and more, as you said, that mental fortitude to be able to do what you do, knowing that the most important pieces of your life outside of the game are missing. But bringing them into the fold, does that take her away from maybe being so, focused on her job at hand? She knows that when she's in that mode, she's just there to play netball. She can do the extras thing, like extra trainings, whatever she's doing in her preparation. It'll be really interesting to see, I think, at the end of the year, whether it's been, as you said, conducive to her performance and elevated her again, or has it maybe taken a little bit of time and energy away from what we've seen over the last few years, because she's like, well, they're here and I want to spend time with them. I want them to enjoy Perth. It's a beautiful city. So, yeah, I'm interested to see, because I think players, you even look at males, obviously athletes as well, sometimes when their families are there, it just distracts and takes a little bit away. Other times it can be the absolute answer to making them play more free and feeling like they're just kind of everything's all there in one. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how she goes. But as I said, I hope she's not getting any better, because wow, we're in for an incredible season, but we're also in for a long World Cup, that's for sure too.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I think everyone's just quaking in their boots, quite frankly, at the prospect of Fowler getting even better. But if we turn our attention over to the Vixens, I think, as we mentioned earlier, both Liv Lewis and Kira Austin were real standouts for me. But overall, they had just 2 goals from gains in this game and a gain to goal percentage of 40% compared to Fever's 82%. And I think at times, like we mentioned, Vixens just looked a little bit out of sorts in transition. They did have great intention, but just not quite there at times. Do you think this was due to the impact of missing Joe Weston, perhaps?
Well, they haven't had Joe Weston for a lot of their pre-season, so they really should have had time to kind of consolidate on who's slotting into that role, what kind of responsibilities or players are in charge of what. But she is someone that does generate a lot of that attacking play, I think, out of transition for them. She's kind of like that get out of jail free card. Just lob it up to Joe and she can get it at times. She's also got a ripper arm on her. Sometimes I know when I was playing with her, I was like, one and done, Joe, and then leave it up to us to do the feeding from the transverse line. But yes, I think she will obviously add a lot more, because I also think that she is one of those players that they may not be addressing this as much, but she brings the other people around. We even saw when she gets back into the mix, Emily Mannix comes more into the game, because it's like this. She plays her role, but she also allows other people to fly and do all these other things. And just that extra presence, sometimes it is even a mental edge, just going, all right, yeah, we're coming up against Joe Weston. She's a diamond. That can even be intimidating. But you talk about obviously the percentage of gain to goal. Simone McInnes would be really, really disappointed at that. And I'm sure training this week, that'll be what they'll work on, from literally transition, getting it going, and go again. They want to be sitting up at least 75 plus. So to be in that 40s, and as you said, to only lose by one, imagine if you could have converted a few more, what the state of the play would have been, the pressure that would have been put on Fever. And they're all the little things that, 75% of your centre pass conversion, 75% plus of your game conversion. You want to be sitting in that 90% for your shooting. If you're slightly below, as you said, on any given day, any team can get in there, especially with that super shot. So you want to make sure that every opportunity you get, you capitalise, and also put that pressure back on your opposition to make them have to change it up and start second guessing their game plans.
Yeah, it's amazing actually just hearing that, because it's just such fine margins, and it's really just those minor little tweaks that teams need to make that can be the making or breaking of a team on a particular day. And sometimes when it starts to go downhill for teams, it really does get away from them and other things start to go wrong as well. But Vixens, I think, did so well to stay in this game and really keep pushing, and it could have so easily gone the other way. And actually that will be quite a scary prospect for Fever, that they potentially could have lost it despite leading so much after the first quarter. But you mentioned Emily Mannix there, and she obviously took a big knock in this game and was told to leave the court. And I think that was a very good call by Josh Bowering to make sure that we're obviously prioritising the player welfare when it comes to head injuries. But we did see her come back on a few minutes later. And I don't know enough about this really, but I struggle to believe that this was a sufficient time for her to be properly assessed and then have that recovery. Do you think that clubs need greater training or more kind of robust processes in place for concussion, given that, I mean, the game's just becoming faster, harder, much more physical, and I feel like that's something that we're sort of lacking a little bit at the moment?
100%. I could not agree with you more. Centre Circle, obviously here on Fox Sports, we have like a discussion around a circle table, and we usually have a bit of a debate section. And a few weeks ago after Team Girls Cup, I was like, we need to talk about HIA, the head. Like, it just needs to be like other sports have it. If you get that contact above the shoulder, you need to be pulled off straight away. The thing is with players, and like, you don't want to come off. You don't want to stop playing. So we need those medical staff to really start to go, all right, well, we've seen it. Do we need to have the, the DRS where we like watch the video replay? Can we see, okay, yeah, both of you. Like, I think both players, anything above the shoulder high contact or head high needs to literally come off, reassess. I think they should actually go back behind closed doors. Yeah. I just think it's kind of personal, like go behind closed doors, just sit in the change room for a moment. That way you've got your stat tests, and all the players do this with their screenings with physios and doctors at the start of the season. Let's do it. Like, I think we can take a lot from the other sports, like a rugby, and definitely in Australia, Aussie rules football. We can take a lot from what they do in those situations. Yes, they're more contact sports, but as you said, I think over the last 6 months, we've seen a lot more head injuries and clashes, or just like people going dizzy. And, even in Australia, we've had a few AFLW players after having played, they're only up to their 8th season. They've actually, putting out a case saying like, I'm having trouble because I wasn't treated properly. So we don't want netball to get into that position. So I think it's a really important piece to start talking about it and implement it sooner than later. So we're not down the track going, why didn't we assess this? We've got such great examples in other sports. Let's do it. Like, what does it matter to just take a couple of minutes out of the game or sitting a quarter off?
Yeah, and this, it's not just unique to SSN. Obviously, that is like the sort of gold tier standard league, but we even had it in our league this week. Rebecca Airy took a really nasty knock in one of the games, and it really is something that we absolutely have to prioritise for sure.
Well, what I can't believe is that we have a more thorough like blood protocol than we do, for like if someone gets a cut finger, and you just think like we've got to catch up with the way that the game is progressing now. So definitely an area for netball to focus on. And I'm glad you guys are having that conversation over there, because I know that's the best way to get things like that moving, is to keep having conversations about them. But we'll move on now to the next game, which was Lightning versus Giants. And it was a big win for the Lightning, 65-50. And this definitely was not as close a game as we were expecting. I think at times the young shooting circle really struggled without Joe Harton's experience. We heard from Gemma Donoghue last week, who's obviously come over here to play in the Super League. Lucy interviewed her just for the podcast. And she said that Joe is the Giants, and that this was obviously, we know that it was the first game that Joe missed in 7 years. 7 years. I mean, that's unbelievable. Like, she didn't have a cold in that whole time. That's amazing. Her health must be insane. But playing devil's advocate, are the Giants in danger of becoming too reliant on Joe?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, she is the Giant. She's their vibe indicator. She's their motivator. She's a part-time coach. She kind of plays a whole lot of different roles. But that's obviously something that I think the Giants, it's probably not a bad thing that they have kind of felt this, because sometimes, you know, it's better the fact that she can come in and she's only injured at the moment and she's not completely gone, because where would that leave them entirely? But I think it's about maybe her like specifying exactly what role she plays, who can pick up them, because we all know like great leadership actually induces other leaders to take over and to have that ownership. And maybe it is the time for, you know, a Jamie Lee Price. It might be a really difficult season for the Giants, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot more learnings for the future, for the next couple of years, to be maybe a little bit more competitive, or just have that understanding of, you know, when it's sometimes even hard when you're a player and then you get a leadership position, you're like thinking, oh, I've got to encourage and I've got to do all of this. The first and foremost is you just got to play your role and do your job on court, and that will bring other players along. Too often you think that you've got to give extra and do more. So I think it's, as I said, I don't want to say that they rely that much on her, but I think, you know, we saw on the weekend how much they do. You mentioned the young shooters, and yeah, they are really young. They still do have played a couple of seasons. It's not like it's their first year and they're being thrown in the deep end entirely. I mean, Sophie Dwyer is also a diamond. So, you know, yes, you can go, yep, you're young, but at the end of the day, when you're stepping out on that court, you're out there to absolutely own it and take it on. So I'd love to see them feel empowered to really own their positions when they're on there. Even a Maddie Hay missing in that attack end, I think they really missed her as well. She's been a focal point for them the last couple of years. And although she doesn't get a lot of credit and she's not maybe a big name player in the league, she just does her job and she's really consistent for them. So as much as they're missing Joe, I think they missed Maddie Hay as well. And the biggest thing for them is, once again, they weren't getting enough turnover ball. I mean, Lightning down that attack end, those goalers of Conan and Wood, they are superb to watch. It's just incredible to see their kind of connection, and just like they can turn and throw, look away, pass, and just know the other one's going to be there.
Yeah, it is so impressive. Like, they were just completely on song. It was brilliant to watch. But I think that's a really interesting point about Maddie Hay, because yes, I think the shooting circle were missing Joe's leadership and experience, but I actually think it was that wing attack position that they struggled with the most. And we saw Palmy got put into wing attack, which I don't know if I've ever remember seeing before.
I don't know that Amy Parmenter's ever really seen herself there.
I mean, it was a choice. It was definitely a choice. And I think you could tell, like, it was a wing defense put into a wing attack bib. Like, the touch on the feed wasn't there at times. And Lauren Moore actually had a wing attack bib on as well during one of the timeouts or the quarter time. She never actually made it onto court in wing attack, but her primary position is goalkeeper, right? And she had a wing attack bib on. Do you think the Giants have been neglectful in this wing attack position in terms of their recruitment at all?
Yeah, and I just think it's like that's the hardest thing, I think, when you've got 10 players, you know, one person goes down or two in that attacking lineup, you need to have that flexibility and versatility within them to know that just one play comes out and you completely turn to shambles. Like, you've got to have that backup. You know, Slager, we haven't seen her play a lot. She played a little bit last year, but she's still trying to find her feet. But I think it's also just they couldn't really take Jamie Lee Price out of that. Like, Palmy, I probably would have put even Jamie Lee Price back to wing defence and Palmy in the centre. But once again, it was that feeding role that, as I said, hey, I think she's just so consistent for them that They didn't talk about her missing her much at the game, but I was like, I actually think, and I mean, call me biased being a former wing attack, but she plays a really, really important role for them. And just as you said, is that link from one end to another. And Jamie Lee Price's workload just intensified. And you could see that sometimes towards the end of the game, she was just running on the spot. She wasn't she was still trying to turn over, but it was more like ill-disciplined, like out of play because she's just so fatigued. So, yeah, maybe they need to have a look. And one thing I think about last year with the Giants actually is they signed their 10 very, very early, like before the end of the season. They're like, yeah, we've still got the same 10 for next year. Maybe that was a mistake, or maybe that's something that they should have gone, all right, let's have a look at who can move. What if we take this person out? Where have we got? It's even really important to have those training partners, that depth in your training partners, to be able to call on them at any time and know that you can continue to obviously have wins, because as we know, you drop a couple early in the season and it's really, really hard to get back in.
Yeah, you just give yourself an uphill battle if you don't start the season well. And I think it's interesting because there's only 10 in the squad. So you have to have that flexibility for people to move between thirds. And I think that's why you start to see sort of like your Taylor Frasers and your Paige Hadley in the midcourt who can cover all three positions. And I guess maybe that's what Julie Fitzgerald was going for with that decision. But I did think it was a little bit rogue, to be honest with you, and they do need to work on I think they're entering a building phase really, and what does the future look like for Giants, and what plans can they put in place? Obviously post Jo Harton, we don't know whether she is planning to retire this year. We hope not, obviously, as England fans, of course, but you never know. And so they need to start that succession planning really, I do think, as well. But looking quickly now at the Sunshine Coast Lightning, this was Belinda Reynolds' first game as head coach for an SSN team, and it was a pretty good start, very positive win. 2022 was a bit of a disaster for Lightning, only winning 4 out of 14 matches. So to come out and start 23 like this was very, very impressive. What do you think Belinda has done well in the off season to produce such a good turnaround for Lightning?
Well, obviously, you know, you think about where did she come from? She came from winning a premiership last year with Fever, and she's bringing over that level of excitement and even success there into her own head coaching or first head coaching role at SSN. There wasn't a lot of changes, I guess, in the Lightning team, but we have seen the injection of a Carla Pretorius within the mix. And obviously you can see that defense end absolutely light up with her. She's incredible. I can't believe she hasn't even missed a beat. Just popped out a child, off you go, and then straight back into dominant Carla. But I think for Belinda, like you could see a little bit, you know, when you're in a stadium and you're watching teams, and you can just see sometimes, you know, the voice that they're listening to, it's just not making as much of an impact as maybe it did at the start. So you know, the thing is, she might be saying exactly the same things, but it's just sometimes hearing it from a different voice, hearing it from a different perspective. You've got that new level of injection of enthusiasm, like, yes, we've got a fresh start, we've got a new person. We want to build that level of trust and respect. So it's quite interesting to see how they literally like zone into her and like show her that level of respect. I think we've kind of seen Lightning come back to what they were a little bit underneath Nolene Tarua. You could just see them like literally she'd talk and they'd be like glued to every word she was saying. And that's not to say Kylie Burns wasn't a great coach, but it's just quite interesting to see how some coaches just can really get the playing group in. And you look at a Conan, you look at a Wood, you even look at a Sherian, and you just go, gosh, they're back to what they were like in 17 and 19 when they went back to back. That just new level, as I said, it's like this like lift and like, all right, we've got a fresh start. They were really disappointed the fact that it was the first year in SSN history that they didn't make finals last year. But yeah, I also think for them, they've got a position to fill in Tara Hinchcliffe, obviously going down with an ACL. She's had surgery. I hope she's recovering really well. But they've got a position there. And I think if I was coach, not that I am, but I think they'll look at maybe like a swing wing defense, goal defense, maybe one in that centre, so that we can maybe see Mahalia Cassidy go to centre, sharing to wing attack, because Annie Miller is good, but is she a quality quarter player? Not quite there just yet. So I think that's where they might look to inject something. And I know there's a few training partners that might be a really good pick for them around the league. So we're interested to see who they pick.
Well, we've seen Katrina Rode in come back for Stars in ANZ, so you never know, might be able to pick her up. I mean, that would be incredible.
The Kiwis already hate us, Lucy. Why would we go back to that? Why would we go take one of their star players in a World Cup year? They'd be like, absolutely no way, don't do that.
Oh, I would absolutely love to see that. But yeah, watch this space for who that replacement player is. But moving on to our final game of the round then was Firebirds versus Thunderbirds, with Thunderbirds taking the win 59-44. Now, we can't possibly not mention what has happened in the Firebirds camp with the shock departure of Sarah Francis-Bayman and, of course, the replacement of Lovell Browne as assistant coach, who will only be joining them on game days, we've learned. It was only a few days ago that Beck Bully was on Fourth Quarter podcast, and she said, and I quote, Sarah and I are a team. She brings a bit of English flavour to our trainings, whereas I'm like, no, it's got to be done the Australia way. So things we can absolutely complement and also challenge. But the great thing is, though, we're aligned in how we coach and in the message that we give to players. And it was only a few days after this that obviously Sarah was gone. Given that this whole saga took place just 6 days before the start of the season, do you think it indicates that things are not as they should be in the Firebirds camp?
Yeah, I think we even saw a little bit of a touch or taste of it at the TGC on the Gold Coast. I'm always a big believer and that when you're having to talk about something, it's not kind of happening. When, you know what I mean? Like when people talk about, oh, we're a united team. Okay, we can see if you're united. We can see if you're not. Like we didn't come down in the last shower, guys. Like we can see it. So I think there was a lot of talk at TGC, and as you said, well, we are this and we are that. And it's like, yeah, well, if you say that, we should be able to see it. But I think there was a lot of people going, that doesn't really make sense to what maybe we've seen a little bit of and now what we're hearing of. It was really, I guess, it's like not the preparation you want as a player to know that your assistant coach that you've just spent the last 3 to 4 months in pre-season listening to, building a relationship with. I think Sarah would have had some incredible insight, bringing, as you said, that international English flavour. Obviously, once again, I think it also was probably a dynamic mix where it's like Beck Bully's first year as head coach, and how does that look for her? So maybe a few too many moving parts for that coaching group. But yeah, I'm shattered to see obviously Sarah have to leave that position, but I know she's an exceptional coach, and it would be great to see her on a list somewhere else and bringing in that. Obviously, just like Tracy Neville with the Thunderbirds, it would be incredible to have that, as I said, international flavour. So, not the preparation you want as a player, but she did put out an incredible post on game day saying that she would absolutely go in to fight for that group of women, and it was the playing group. So I think she does have a huge level of respect for that playing group. I think they've obviously started to build a relationship. Who knows what's happened behind closed doors with the organisation, but I think they started off strong and you were like, oh, here they are to prove a point, and then they quickly died, and maybe that had a bit of an influence on the outcome of the game in the end for the Firebirds.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually think, like, if we do get stuck into the game now, there were some choice coaching decisions from Beck Bully. I think particularly the decision to take off Laura Dunkley, who at the time that she came off, she was actually leading on the NSL net points, and she seemed to be having a ripper of a game to me. I was baffled while she was taken off. Where do you think, is this where Firebirds fell down once she came off the court?
Yeah, well, I was watching as well, and I was like, here she is getting intercept, she's getting the feeds, she's been quite that focal point down that attack end. The ball, when it was going through her, seemed to be creating a lot of really synergy between that goaling end and the mid-court. So, yeah, I was really shocked at that as well. I mean, Lauren Brown, or Lauren Norse, as many people may have known her playing for Australia, she's a wing attack specialist. She's a mid-quarter. She's played for the Diamonds. So my biggest thing is, I think, Beck is obviously a very defensive focus. That's obviously where she's come as a player. I would love to see a little bit more, okay, I'm taking the defense end, you're taking the attack end, and then obviously as a head coach, you can obviously address the group before they go out on court. But I feel like there's a little bit too much of maybe one person doing all the work. But yeah, I was like, that's not the move I would have done at all. And I think there was a few coaches as a whole over the weekend made changes really quickly. And yes, you do not want to delay, because a 2-minute time slot could make it a 10 to 12 goal deficit. But there is also time to sometimes let them settle in that new combination, allow it to have time to play out, allow it to try and find its feet. Maybe 3-4 centre passes, okay, not happening, then change. But it's like, oh, no, 2 turnovers, get them off, let's move something else. So I think it's about that, knowing when to change, knowing when to leave. And that comes from knowing your players and knowing what they do in those clutch moments and pressure situations.
Yeah, I think it kind of was that timing of the decision, and it really fell apart for the Firebirds in that last quarter particularly. They lost it 7-19, and the decision to have a timeout at that point came too late. So it was almost like the coaching, the personnel changes were too early and the timeouts were way too late. And obviously timeouts are something that's quite unique to SSN and we don't have it in any other forms of the game. And it can kind of be a blessing or a curse depending on how they're utilized. Have you seen any changes in the way the coaches use the tactical timeouts? And are there any coaches who you think do that really well?
Oh, well, I do think we even saw, as you said, the use of a timeout coming too late for the Firebirds. But in that first quarter, she was like, oh, we're just taking a timeout. This is just a breather. This is for you to have a breath. Players should be able to run out 15 minutes. If they're not, I don't know why they're at that league or why they're playing in that competition. But I can you can also understand sometimes you get on a really big run and you go, and then you just need to pause, reset, rejig, and then continue. We all know it's easy to get 5 goals up, but to push to that 10 and then 10 plus is really, really difficult. But I also think that should be up to the leadership on the court to just, as even the captain, Kim Rebellion, you're in the centre. You can just take it a little bit easier back to the centre pass. You can take the tempo or the pace out of the game. That is your job, not only as a leader, but also as a centre. So the use of the timeout, you see some call it within that 5-minute mark. They're like, okay, we've absolutely pushed for 10. We're going into the power 5. What are we going to do strategically here? I think at times they are, some you talk about coaches calling it, a lot of it is player driven. When you're sitting on the sideline, you can actually see the players call it. Sometimes they look over to the coach and say, I'm going to call one now. And the coach goes, yep, I think, because there's also like that, what you see, but also what you're feeling on court can be totally different. So I think you've got to find that balance, but definitely have strategy behind it. And that should be practiced at training. You should be doing 15-minute time slots at training, getting to the 7-minute mark, calling it pause. Pause when you're up, pause when you're down, see how you react. How do you come out? I know as a player, there were times when we'd call timeouts and we'd be like, we are terrible out of it. So unless we desperately have to, let's just keep rolling with momentum. As I said, I think there's other elements that you can use before you resort to that. And that is just within the court, working on your little units, your connections, building that type of control and tempo, pace, composure, and as I said, control by players within the state of play before you go timeout and everyone's like, oh gosh, we're just getting on a roll. Here we go again. So I can't say that there's one coach that I'm saying absolutely nails it every time. But maybe ask me in a couple of weeks and I'll give you a tip on how we should and shouldn't use it.
Yeah, it is. It's such a skill, isn't it, to know when the game, when things are flowing in the game. And I'm always really interested in how much the coaches are looking at the stats and seeing what's coming up and how much they're going based on just the feeling of the game and how it's flowing. And I think it's very, very difficult to get that timing exactly right. And it can also be the ruining of a team, basically, if you choose it at the wrong time, or if the other team just comes out much better from it and then gets that little run on you. But looking at the Thunderbirds now, obviously, who took the win in this game, I think that, everyone has been expecting a lot from this group. They've been building. They had the defense, most incredible defensive record in the league last year, but then weren't able to really convert and turn those into goals. But we thought that Taylor Williams had a fantastic impact in this game, and she actually scoops up our final place in the Qtr Time Trio for the midcourt. And we compared her stats to every other middie across all the games. And given that she only played 45 minutes, they're actually really, really impressive. 16 goal assists, 31 feeds, 2 gains, 1 intercept, 4 deflections. And I think, if my memory serves me well, she also had a really good Team Girls Cup as well. Why do you think that Tanya Obst opted to start her on the bench?
you probably go, okay, let's start strong with experience. You also don't know what's happening in the lead up. Once again, it's about knowing your playing group. Maybe there's someone that starts better. She can come on. She's shown in the last season that she can come on and make an impact straight away. And maybe that's how they were thinking they were going to utilise her. But obviously the way that the game started, it was like, okay, we've got to get her in there, see what she can do. Usually, as I said, she'd play that impact role. They take her off, you get to see it again, then you bring her back on. But yeah, I would definitely start with her. She's a homegrown talent. She seems to get along really well with that group. There's a lot of connectedness with her. I mean, impressive to see that just after one season. We always see your first season, you can absolutely light the league on fire and everyone's like, oh my goodness, who is this person? But your second year is where the tough work really starts, because people start to analyze you, start to know how to pick apart your game. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, those tricks that worked last year because I was an unknown aren't quite working. So really great for her to see her kind of take off where she finished 2022. But you talk about that attack and Eleanor Cardwell in there. I mean, I think she's what they were missing. They obviously did have that focal point in Potgieter last year, but I think it's also the leadership that Eleanor brings. You can see, obviously, she hasn't been in the country for long, but she's been put into that leadership position and into that leadership group for a reason, because I think she brings a lot more than just what she can in actions on the court. And just to see her out the front, she's so versatile. She can go back. She's got that forward. She's got the quick hand, the long range shot, the holding. So for me down that attack end, it's going to be them utilising everything that she can offer at the right moment for them to really take it on. Because as you said, that defence end, they can turn ball over anytime you want. They're so crazy. Once again, another impressive team to watch, and young kids definitely watch that. The way that those Jamaicans move their feet, their hands, and they're really clean. Really clean. I think that's something that we've seen. You know, there's some defenders that you're holding on, but the Jamaicans, they're just so quick and light on their feet that you're like, how did they even get it? Like, where did they even come from?
Yeah, I mean, so nimble. Like, I just watch them and I'm like, I get so jealous. I'm like, there's me, like super flat-footed and like pounding my way around the court, and then they just completely show me up. But I mean, it's funny you mentioned Shamira Sterling and sort of Jamaican defenders. Shamira had some amazing stats to her name. She had 11 games. It was 5 intercepts, 12 deflections, 4 rebounds, 7 pickups. And her player of the match award actually saw 4 out of 4 player of the matches given to Jamaican players, which shows just what incredible form they are in following that historic Commonwealth Games silver medal. Obviously, coming towards Netball World Cup, just how fearful should we be of Jamaica? Or is that mid-court historically, which has been a problem for them, is that going to rear its head again, do you reckon?
It might. Because, you know, we talk about the middies being like that link between one end to the other, and you can have really strong ends, but you still need to get it from one end to the other. What I think that most other nations and countries should be fearful of is the fact that they had a taste of what it is to play in a gold medal match, what it's like to play in finals, to have that pressure on that international stage, which is what they haven't had for so long. They've always played short. Oh, we're playing for the 3rd and 4th. But to get that experience, I think last year, phenomenal. And you can even see, you talk about Shamira Sterling, like in that match. Usually we've seen, say she has a quiet first quarter, drop her head, get a little bit internal, where you can see this level of kind of composure, control, maturity in her game just within the space of a couple of seasons. And usually I think when you were playing against her, you'd be like, well, get on top of her early and we've got her. She's nothing to worry about. But to know that she actually has that mental element in her game now, that she can be out of it, but she can also come in. She's not going to lose the ball or drop her head. And she might have a quiet first half and then all of a sudden she lights it up. So, yeah, I think they are definitely ones to beat. Even going to the Quad Series in Cape Town earlier in the year, I guess New Zealand, they have still got a lot to learn and a lot to give, I believe. They obviously had some players that weren't in their mix at the end of last year for their international series, like a Berger and even a Jane Watson coming back into the mix. So that was like their first game back from injury, from babies, from everything. So I think they're going to also be quite challenging. My head and my heart go, of course, Australia, we're going to be up there, but I do think that we've had this same team and it can be really, really good. But as we've seen in a couple of SSN teams, yes, it can be good, but you still got to have that injection of those impact players. And missing Gretel Buweta is going to be a big hole to fill. Even though we were successful in Jan, I still think she's a missing piece in a big game, in a big world tournament.
Yeah. Whereas poor England, we're like sat underneath all of you, like we just don't have a chance anymore.
The biggest thing for England is to get all their players fit and firing. I mean, we've said Joe with an injury, Cardwell was out with injury. So hopefully them even being in the mix with these SSN teams with really quality medical staff, that week in, week out conditioning and strength. Hopefully we'll do all the work to get you guys ready and raring to go and take
That'd be great. Thanks, lads.
But you know what? I just hope that it's like really hotly contested. I mean, of course, my heart, as I said, I want Australia to always win and be up the top, but I love watching really competitive netball. So the fact that, as you said, in any league that you're watching, if anyone can take it out, that's what you want to see. The best of the best going for it and actually earning it at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be the best, you have to beat the best at their best. So, it's really, really amazing to hear your insight, Maddie, and just your excitement. I'm so pumped right now, and it's like 11 p.m. over here. And I've loved hearing all your analysis of the first round of the SSN, and everything that you've got to say is so amazing. And it's great to have you on Fox as well, providing that coverage too. Before we let you go, we are going to put you in the hot seat and ask for your top 4 predictions for the SSN, including who's going to make the grand final and who'll come away with the trophy.
Oh, okay. So do you want to know my head or my heart? Do you want to know my head or my heart predictions?
Head first, then heart.
Yeah. Okay, so in my head, I think the top 4 will be Fever, Adelaide, Lightning, and it's either going to come down to a Vixens and a Magpies, I believe, in that top 4 position. That's who I do think. To be in the grand final with my heart, I'd love to say a Magpies. I'd love to say Magpies and a Vixens, because we know that the grand final already has been announced that it's going to be in Victoria. So that would be incredible. But if it can't be that, I'd love either a Magpies and a Thunderbirds, or even a rematch of the TGC. Fever and Thunderbirds could be incredible. But definitely at least one Melbourne team, if the grand final is going to be in Melbourne, or a Victorian team, would be fingers crossed. That would be incredible. So I can just imagine, we're obviously a sporting capital. We love our sport. So to hold the grand final and hopefully fill out a John Cain Arena would be exceptional. But yeah. I think that's my top 5. I didn't really give you the answer.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think it's really close. It's too close to call, to be honest with you. I say if I had to put a bet down, I would probably bet on Fever to go back to back. I just think they're going to be so good by the end of the season, particularly. But who knows? What do you think, Luce?
Oh, mate, I honestly cannot call it. I mean, I can definitely see Fever go back to back, but I'm a bit like you, Matt. I've got a real soft spot for Magpies, so I just really want them to make it. They've had all the talent, but so many years. I want an Ashbraz to get a premiership. I want a Mentor to get another premiership. Like I just want it to happen to them. So I'm manifesting it into existence.
Yeah, for sure. Oh well,
done.
Well, we will have to wait and see what unfolds. But massive thank you, Maddie, for coming on the podcast today and sharing your insight and enthusiasm. And best of luck for the rest of the season and everything you're doing.
Thank you, Lucy's. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Qtr Time. We can't wait to bring you even more netball chat and another super special guest next week.
Oh, yeah, next week's one's absolute corker. You guys are not ready for this. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at Qtr Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Do get involved in the conversation online. We love chatting to you. Let us know what you thought of the matches this weekend and which players have stood out for you across any of the leagues, because we're watching them all.
Yeah. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review, as it helps other people to find the podcast. If you enjoy listening to the pod, please let us know, and do spread the word with all your netball pals so even more people can get involved. Don't forget as well to take advantage of our exclusive discount with Lovell Netball by entering the code NETPOD15 at the checkout at lovellnetball.co.uk. Thanks, guys, and speak to you next week. Bye.
Bye.